Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Get More From Your Rental Store week. We're rolling out a whole bunch of content to explain the rental industry to you. And today I've got something that, quite honestly, I've been trying to get for about 15 years in this industry is a real breakdown and an explanation and a way to think about the rent versus buy equation. When do I rent equipment? When do I buy equipment? When does it make sense to do that one? And when does it make sense to do this one? And what are the factors that go into that? Now, my guest today, Patrick Tunnicliffe, has expressed his very severe concerns because the fact of the matter is there is no one answer to this question. This is something that is extremely fluid. It's a matter of your circumstances, your matter of the exact sort of work that you're doing. There's a whole variety of variables that go into this, but we're going to talk about a lot of that and at least give you the framework to think about it, some rules of thumb, and kind of go forward from there. So that's enough blather for me. Patrick is the president of Rental Wise. He is a consultant for the equipment and party and event rental industries. And I'm going to get Patrick to introduce himself and his company a little bit. But we're really pleased to have him here today to educate all of us over here in the home renovation and custom home building industry. So, Patrick, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and Rental Wise.
Yes, Patrick, thanks for having me. Happy to share. And yeah, that was a perfectly articulated introduction, because that's more or less what I was gonna summarize. But I promise, if you stick around for the whole thing, the last lesson is a rule of thumb that you can work from. So we will be able to distill this into something workable for you.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I going way back, a mechanical engineer, competitive snowboard racer, ended up in the equipment and party and event rental industry somewhere toward the tail end of that early phase journey. I spent 10 years as a rental operator, general manager of a rental store, and went through all the trials and tribulations of scaling and growing that into some distant reflection of what it was, when I started. And all the lessons learned, they were part of my dreams. They're part of my day to day, and defined my identity and every decision that I was making for a long time. And a lot of them were really challenging, trial and error, sort of hard knock lessons learned. And I realized after the fact that the rental operators, and I appreciate we're not primarily speaking to rental operators now, but the rental operators deserve to have all ships raised through some shared knowledge. And I have been in a pursuit since then, now that I'm on my own in the consulting space, the advisory space, in industry advice space, to help do that. So this messaging is based on lessons learned, personal anecdotes, but also peer conversations. Another part of my practice is in facilitating roundtable discussions amongst peer operators of like operations. So it's drawing on a lot, and I'm on this mission to share it with everyone. What's really interesting, I think, is, like I said, my primary recipient of this information would be equipment rental operators, probably in that fairly narrow vertical of industry. But what's interesting is that the mirror of this messaging is really the same valuable information that contractors can use. So I had an interesting experience drawing up this slide deck for this conversation, because I was taking common concepts that I talk to with rental operators on a day-to-day basis, and then just pivoting it into the perspective that my idea of a perspective that a contractor would appreciate. So forgive me if I dance around some common language or I get it wrong for what common speak is, because I am not from the contracting industry, but I'm going to do my best to entertain you with this information.
It's not that different. I think we all occupy a pretty similar space. It's just the rental guys are the gearheads, and the the contractors are the ones that actually use the stuff. So yeah, you've done great research on this. I was frankly blown away by the quality of the information you put together. I'm really excited to present this to everybody, or for have you present it to everybody.
Yeah.
So let's get our first slide up and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, you bet. So let's see if I can get this to pop up
As
perfectly and
easily as it did when
elegantly.
we weren't actually recording.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's always the trick, isn't it? Yeah.
exactly.
There we go. Look at that.
Okay,
Beautiful.
we like this.
We
That
like
looks
this very
good.
much.
All right, so am I on the first slide? Looks like it.
Yes,
Okay,
you are.
so yeah, I want to say right off the top, Patrick had introduced this. There's nuance to this. The way I described it is like there's a Cinderella's shoe here, like does exist. There's a path of median benchmark values all the way through, and you don't need to be on that median value for all this to make sense. And so a lot of what I've put together here for numbers are bands. So take it with a grain of salt for what any one particular number actually says as more of an indication in direction. You know, getting right into this subject matter, like renting or buying is the question of the day. And what I'm trying to do is distill that question down to like an atomic unit. In this case, I'm showing a machine's daily rental rate as a share of its purchase price. So the first tile, I don't think you can see my indicator moving around. So
I
I'll
can.
try to.
I can.
You can. Okay. So
Yeah. Yeah.
20 to 34% in this case, let's just call it 25% of the purchase price per year to own a machine, used or not. So like we're talking overhead, carrying cost, admin, all that sort of thing. Again, broad scale, but generally that's what we're talking about. Depending on how we articulate or how we execute, I should say, on the rental rates, because in the rental industry, quite often there's a daily rate and a monthly rate, and then there's advantages to scale in that regard. So we're going to talk about break-even analyses that range on the order of 2 times. If you're renting something for a contract job less than 60 days a year, it's probably in the rent space. And if you're renting equipment for a contract job for over 120 days a year, we're probably in the purchase space, with all of the footnotes that you can imagine. Like if
Yeah.
you can't own it, that's a pretty hard isolation from the ownership side, and you can imagine all the reasons that you couldn't have a 40,000-pound telescopic handler like in your inventory, in your shed, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm a numbers guy, not a salesperson. I'm not selling rental. What I'm going to do today is try to sell you on the value of some benchmarks metrics, and in particular, what I think is your job logs.
Yeah.
I'm making that up, but I'd imagine if I was a contractor, I'd have some historical account of all the coming ins and outs for a job.
So I'll just emphasize a couple of points there. We're talking initially here about the daily rate, and as Patrick's going to explain, that is going to vary and actually has an interesting effect on this whole equation when you think about weekly and monthly rates. The concept of usage is one that's very common in the rental industry, but maybe not so common out there in the world. Calculating your machine usage is something we're going to want to focus on very carefully and take a close look at. And the other thing, and then between that 60 and 180 days looks like a big spread. Well, it is, and that's your gray area where some figuring and a lot of back of the envelope is going to have to come in, and you're going to have to think very carefully about how you're using the equipment and what you use it for. And you know what? And as Patrick said, even those ranges don't always express it, because there are, for instance, there are very large projects. Not that us listening to this are really doing those, but there are some large projects where the contractor will rent equipment for years and have it out there on site and just be renting all the time because they find it advantageous not to have to maintain it and
Mhm.
to have new equipment brought in and everything like these situations can happen.
Yeah.
But this is again, Patrick, I think you've done a great job of thinking about the smaller contractor and a more normal sort of job site situation. These are where we're coming from on this stuff, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty good example where, let's say, a super long-term project is
Yeah,
clearly on the buy side of the equation, but there are all these reasons not to buy it. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I'm glad that you articulated it that way. Thank you.
yeah.
So
All right.
flip over to the next slide. So I call this one the argument. Um, in general,
I
small
love
tools.
arguments.
Yeah. The small tools rent expensive, the big iron rents cheap. And so what I'm articulating in this slide, um, we take into consideration the handling costs, like your administrative um, burden, the cleaning, the inspections, some degree of liability, and we're looking at scale. So like a plate compactor, and I'm just, again, Canadian dollars, US dollars, rental rates, MSRPs, like I'm not drilling into any one market or anything. Let's just say it's a $5,000 plate compactor, renting it 90 bucks a day. Um, that ratio that I introduced in the first slide, that's we're only talking about, well, we're talking about 2% of an item's MSRP on a daily basis, where as your larger scale material handler is on the fractions of a percentage of a day. So it's pretty easy to wrap your head around, I think, that idea. Um,
Yeah.
the compactor pays for itself fast in an ownership scenario relative to the telehandler. Telehandler rents, like it says here at the bottom, 0.5% of its price per day. So like you probably want to keep renting that. That's going to be on that 120 days a year end of the scale.
Yeah, yeah. Critical information. This is great stuff. That's so if you're getting that small stuff, that easily portable, fire it in the back of your car stuff. That actually, the funny thing is, that's what someone is often renting.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, oh geez, if I'm gonna spend all this money in absolute terms renting a telehandler, right? Well, wouldn't it be better if I just bought it and then I own the asset and I
Mhm.
can resell it or flip it or something later and all the rest of it. That actually can be the wrong way to think about it. It actually almost makes more sense to have your own small stuff and take care of the big stuff at the rental store.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get into the future slides here, but the outlay, the cash outlay, or the financing burden is just a piece of it. Like you
Yeah,
need to maintain owned assets, and you may or may not have a resource, i.e., a person that can maintain your assets,
yeah,
in any efficient sort of manner. And the opportunity cost of an investment, dollars
yeah,
up front, that could
yeah,
be going to materials or wages, that's, you have to weigh that out too. So
yeah.
yeah, lots of considerations involved, and some of them are softer, but they all matter.
And let's I'm gonna quickly digress on something because I was literally riding around in a truck with a contractor yesterday, and was mentioning this thing that we're doing, and he said, well, he said I would rent a telehandler, for instance, but he said I got no one to operate it,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and 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 I guess so that's fine, but I guess like let's communicate to people like how hard is it to operate this stuff really? Like I
Yeah, that's a
mean,
really good point. The you know th- a particular subset of our demographic of resources, our people, operating a telehandler is a very straightforward task. But there is the mirror to that, where it is a complete mystery, and take this as a grain of salt, but what I heard battered around in my background as a rental operator is machine operation skips a generation.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what that's based on, but like anecdotally, it's kind of funny. Like
You know
that,
what it is? It's when people stop growing up on farms.
yeah,
That's the generation it skipped, because if you work on a farm, telehandlers are no problem.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
So from
And skid steers.
from a insurance and regulatory perspective, though,
Right.
material handling, aerial work platforms, or mobile
Yeah.
elevated work platforms, and so on, they do have very particular and regionally focused regulations. So if you're operating one on the site, then you need to be doing so safely, and there's a whole
Yeah.
understanding of comprehension and education in there. But owning is the same thing. If you're maintaining, you're
Yeah.
operating, and you have to have that too. So it's a good point. There's a conundrum there. I would rent the telehandler, but no, there's nobody there to operate it.
Trouble.
Definitely, there's some argument's sake there that if you
Yeah.
could get somebody to operate the telehandler, you would probably find some return on that time investment in all the lifting that it does, versus having a tribe of people like
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
do a bunch of
Well,
work
his
without the
solution,
telehandler.
he was talking about excavating, and his solution, of course, is to just contract an excavating company.
Hmm.
And I mean, so, but you're paying. I mean, okay, but then you got a middleman there. It's a question. Anyways, enough of the digression. Let's go to the next
Yeah.
slide.
So next slide, I'm trying to, we're circling around this 25% figure. This is ownership, annual cost of ownership figure. So let's go through a couple of these definitions. So like a carrying cost from my perspective, and probably yours, is everything owning the machine costs you in a year, whether it's working or not. It's parked all year or it's working all year. Then there's the economic depreciation, which is different than an accountant's depreciation, like the market value. It's whether it's working or not, it'll depreciate at a rate slower to faster based on whether it's working or not. But largely, it just depreciates at the market depreciation schedule. The cost of capital, then that's that opportunity cost. So looking at these charts, what I'm trying to articulate is the lean owner is the farmer that knows what they're doing, they're maintaining it, they've got the farm, the land, and then who knows how much financing burden that they might have. What I quite often hear is, I don't need to finance it, I'm buying it with cash. Well, in this list, the financing burden isn't that much. I think it's showing about 7% of this 25% burden, and then that opportunity cost must be weighed in when you're buying things with cash. So the other end of the scale is the I don't know why it's loaded, but the lean owner is the farmer. The loaded is this city landlocked corporate headquarters and nothing more, where you're leaning on dealers, you're bringing folks in from afar to operate and maintain, and you're pay lots of rent on your admin. So, $100,000 machine, $200,000 machine, $60,000 machine, 34% annual burden to own a machine is nothing to scoff at.
Right. Absolutely. And I think an important thing, when people think about depreciation, they're often thinking about what they can claim on their taxes.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, if you're managing your company, I think, according to business school, you would be thinking about the depreciation on your capital equipment, even if it isn't something that you can write off on taxes or whatever. You need to look at market depreciation, which is frequently different. It's frequently worse, actually, than tax depreciation, and your depreciation could go out longer than the 5 years you're allowed to depreciate something anyway. That's in Canada, that's the rule here.
Mm-hmm.
It could go out longer than that. Now, they've changed some of that recently. Well, no, that's for industrial. That's for industrial equipment. Construction equipment is still the old way. So it's
Got it.
a yeah, it's something you want to think carefully about and make a little chart like this
Yeah, exactly.
to understand whether you're lean typical or loaded.
Yeah, and I want to bring up another anecdote just
Yeah.
related to this before we move on. Is often there's an objection around the machine doesn't owe me anything. It's paid off. There's no financing and no opportunity cost, really being battered around. The problem with that is generally, if that's true, then we've outlived the opportunity issues and the financing burden. It's aging, and the maintenance and repairs, the purple box in the screen, at that time tends to grow and fill the void space. So it's funny. It's hard to win on these sorts of things. I've got this banded, like I said at the introduction, 20% to 34%, with roughly 25% being where we're landing, and we keep landing on that 25% figure, no matter how you try to arbitrage. Like I say, it's hard to arbitrage your way out of this typical path.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I once talked to a rental owner that was I asked him what the secret to his success was, and he said, I can fix all my own equipment, like as in he, the owner, was a mechanic and didn't even have to hire a guy.
Yep.
Said,
Yep.
Yep. Well, there's your edge.
Yep. I mean, that's what you got to do to get things going when you don't have cash flow and you got to, go to work every day to make a dollar. I totally get it, but it's restrictive eventually with consideration of opportunity. Yeah.
I love this slide. Go.
Yeah, me too. You beat me to it. I was gonna say, out of all the slides, this one's actually one of my favorites, because it's like there's emotional, deep, underlying like hangups that we all have here. So contractors will remember we use that all the time. And when I was on my side of the counter, the other side of the counter than your listeners, I would hear that sort of framing all the time, but it's usually the opposite. Like it was sitting all the time. We hardly used it. Was what we would classically get. And then we're clever. We get asked that enough, and we put GPS and telematics and stuff in there, and we can see how much it's running. But yeah, the felt usage tends to run about double of real usage when you're trying to justify a purchase. Like we use it all the time. The machine is emotionally big. You remember loading it, moving it, storing it, and you remember the day that it was there when you needed it. But you don't remember 20 weeks it didn't get touched.
Right. Yeah. Why would you? Those were boring. That was the same. That was the same thing every day.
Exactly. But they're emotionally significant. The counting days, right?
Double is quite a number, people. Double. Actually, maybe document before you make your decision. Document things for a little while and see what you're, really doing.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up the logbook or the job log. And again, I'm pulling that out of thin air. I just assume you have some sort of account of operations, but like count the days the machine's working, like with a strike, with a 1, and help add that up, get that benchmark established across not just I keep talking about the compactor and the telehandler. Those are technically 2 asset classes or category classes, depending on what your language is. There's hundreds of category classes. You have to bear in mind that your vibratory compaction equipment, your concrete demolition level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they all have they all land on this scale of this presentation in a different path, in a different ratio. So like the break-even number of days that you need to rent might not be on the first slide we talked about 60 days being the no-brainer own argument or a low-brainer argument for a plate compactor. But where is your coring rig or your concrete demolition device? Is it more like a telehandler, or is it more like a plate compactor? So you need the fundamental information accounted for so that you can make purposeful decisions on whether to rent or buy in the future.
Absolutely, and it's back to that percentage of the whole cost of ownership. It's make sure you think about those calculations.
Yeah. So I'm going to get you to just bookmark that concept, the usage count, because it's going to be helpful later.
Usage count. Yep.
Exactly. So this is probably one of the worst slides in the whole deck, and for those that are listening, I've basically got an X and Y axis where the amount paid to your rental store is on the left, the vertical axis, and the actual counted usage days per year on the horizontal axis. And I've got two different types of bands.
Yeah.
Sort of the worst. But basically, we have this blue band, which indicates for a $60,000 mini excavator, the cost of ownership, like somewhere between $12,000 and $20,000 a year. And I think we're calling it a median of $15,000 a year. Now that's all well and good, but for that very same $60,000 excavator, you might be renting it day to day to day to day at your friendly rental store's market daily rate, which is showing an argument on the steepest amber band that after 48 days, you may as well have owned it, with a whole bunch of softer considerations that we've kind of touched on in there. But if you've got some scale, or it's an ongoing working everyday type job where you can eke out a monthly rate from your neighborhood rental operator, then
you could be out as far as 120 days.
Exactly. You got that advantage there to 120 days. So hopefully some sense of the graphic lands. But yeah, basically the conclusion. Yeah, go for it.
It's startling. It's startling to see this. Maybe not surprising. I don't know how you'd put it. Shocked, but not surprised. It's startling when you look at this and you realize how you use your equipment and how you plan, like some organization and some planning around using your equipment can save you actually unbelievable amounts of money renting, and can change this whole equation. If you're able to stack up your use of the mini excavator, maybe across 2 or 3 job sites you've got going on, and keep it for the week, keep it for the month, right? Well, you probably rarely need it for a month, but anyway, at least keep it for a week. And do this on a regular basis, right? Like try to organize your use of equipment to the extent that you can, rather than just go that morning, oh, we need to dig a hole today, go down and get it for the day, and then we're done. And then 2 days later, oh, we need another hole over here. Like if you can do some work around that, you can enter into a situation where you're able to rent, or you maybe realize you need to buy, but it changes the equation a lot whether you're doing daily, weekly, or monthly. I think that's the important point here for the contractor.
Totally. And just a little bit of insight to the other side of the rental counter. Like if I can have a business with operational efficiency allowing me to turn a machine to my contractor, partner in business here, over and over and over again, I stand to do very well. But if you can flip the equation in your favor, then the opposite is also true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a really great point.
So let's be honest, with a 45-day usage count year, same company, opposite answers. So I'm sort of anchoring to this mini excavator now. $60,000 mini excavator, you rent it for $9,000. and we're taking sort of the median on what you're paying and um, coming up with this single scalar result, but you can be ahead $6,000 a year because remember the ownership was 25%. We keep coming back to this 25% factor. So a $60,000 excavator costs you 15 grand to keep the lights on, and you can rent it for 9 grand a year. So that makes sense, right?
Yep.
And you have $60,000 that you didn't outlay or finance. So there's a lot of things you can probably do in your contracting business with that money.
Yep.
On the other side of the coin, your $5,000 vibratory plate compactor. When I ran the numbers on a spreadsheet, we landed at 50 days. Was the clean numbers. Buy it, and that's because the cost of rent through a couple of these median numbers that we're adopting, $4,500, and ownership is $1,300.
Right.
Saving $3,200.
Right. But now you've got to be able to fix a plate compactor.
Totally. Yeah. And if you've got those resources, yeah, exactly.
And if you've ever owned a plate compactor,
yeah,
fix so after every use.
Yeah, you can buy it on a credit card, but you'll be fixing it for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah. But that's exactly that. This is a great illustration of how the equation changes with the size of the equipment. So that's.
Yeah, and I don't get into it formally into the slides here, but it does make me pause and think about end of life cycle. So what do you do for disposal? It's really easy to just hold on to it and fix it forever, but a rental operator is probably going to have their heads wrapped around a full life cycle turnaround, and when does it move on, and how does it move on, and where does it move on to? So something to keep in the back of your mind. Again, it's more than just the transaction up front.
And this is what I want people to do after seeing this is try to think a little bit like a rental operator thinks. Most guys will not keep equipment in their fleets for more than like 4 or 5 years on the absolute outside, right? A lot of guys are turning over equipment every 2 years because the maintenance costs spike that quickly. Now, of course, if you're running a rental operation, you also want to have shiny new, good looking equipment there because it helps your business. But most people, even guys that don't worry about that so much, do not let the equipment get out past 4 or 5 years old. And I don't think that's just because it's now completely depreciated. They also because like, okay, so even it's depreciated, well, it's 10 years old, but I could still be renting it out all the time. So why would I go and do something else? No, the costs in pain in the butt go up. They escalate very quickly past that point. Have I got that more or less right, Patrick?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard. What's kind of funny is that if you were financing it and you felt the pain in financing, that's at least in your face. But when your crew is generally babysitting, transporting, maintaining, repairing, and teaching, learning, and certifying on that aging piece of equipment, that's softer. Like you don't know that it's getting you.
Yep. It just seems like another thing happened today, and to some extent it is. That's job sites, right? It's just an endless bunch of problems to solve. But yeah, that's right. It flies under the radar.
Yeah, it totally does. So we've got some band. These are the median strikes. The medians for a plate compactor, 50 days to break even, depending on how efficient you are in renting it from your friendly neighborhood rental operator. So right. the orange band is like you're very lean, you're very efficient on one side, and it's a little pricey on the other side. So basically, I have got the plate compactor, the mini excavator, scissor lift, and telehandler overlaying this. Renting usually is the idea on the left side, and owning is usually the idea on the right side. Yeah. These we have bands, and we keep coming to these bands. I want to point out that where there's a tiebreaker, like when you spend any time deliberating within the gray zone, usually you want to push toward renting for the reasons that we talked about on the last slide, because of certification and inspection burden, aerial work platform annuals. You can't run an aerial work platform beyond its annual inspection, and it's taken away from you. So there's an argument that the rental house is better off absorbing that inefficiency than your daily operations. And obsolescence and depreciation, like that is something that you probably don't want to shoulder when all of a sudden the spider lift that you've invested in because you saw a rental house had this super cool thing, but then it's deregulated, or it's not no longer the trick tool of the day. Then you're stuck with this $380,000 specialty tool.
Or even just struggling with something that's technology from 20 years ago. Yeah, hydraulic lines breaking off, everything else, and missing out, frankly, on the opportunity to have something that works better and faster, which there is all the time. Like, I mean, one of the things that was going on just as I left the industry a couple of years ago, the electric equipment has been surging and gaining a lot of capability. You have lithium ion excavators out there now. Like this is the kind of thing that you could get at a rental store, and again, if the application is right and it's not too cold, you can have a cleaner, easier, quieter, everything. I mean, so you do miss out by using the old stuff forever.
Absolutely, and I think that is the realm of the rental house to shoulder that unproven technology. Like, these are technically new CAT classes that I'd be, if you think back to the first couple slides, I'm asking you to count up the usage days on each of them. You should be counting the usage days of the electric version of the diesel solution across the year as well, because it's probably coming at a premium, and there's probably, like you implied, scenarios where it's too cold, and so you can't work it. So this analysis that we're sort of working on here together, you need to be careful to break that down into its granular constituents.
Yep, absolutely.
So this is starting to get interesting. I think we've
got.
I
loved. Oh yeah, another point I loved.
Yeah, just a few slides left. So now, how do we make money out of all of this? Obviously, I'm leaning to, for good reason, the rental argument. I'm a rental guy, but I do want you to see clarity around buying what you can buy. But there's some spread to be made here. So if you are, let's just talk about the definitions I've got on the screen because it's helpful for the conversation. Run a rental company inside your company. And that is no joke. Not everyone hasn't crossed the paths of everybody in the world, but there are actually contractors, general contractors, that run rental desks inside the company umbrella. You don't need to do it at that grand scale, and you don't need to have multiple publicly listed companies and whatnot to do that. You can, like we've been talking about, own the equipment and get something on the spread of the rental. So in this case, we have a charge out rate, that what you bill your job on a day for service by the equipment, using, we'll say, the market daily rate, whether you rented the machine or you own it. And the spread is the gap between what the machine costs you and what the job pays for it. So on rented iron, that gap is margin, not overhead. So if we have a $8,000 rent against 3 months, and then 40 days are chargeable days, then we're looking at a median against median margin of $5,200 on this particular piece of equipment.
Are you hearing this, folks? Your equipment cannot be an expense that's coming out of your bottom line. It could be making you money. It could be a line item on your job on which you have margin, just like you do on your materials, And just like you do on your labor, you can have margin on the machine usage as a line item and be making money. And if you don't have to own it and you don't have to maintain it and you're renting it and you just put your margin above, as Patrick has shown here, you are it's another way to make money.
Profit
I
center.
love
Yeah.
I love that point. It's a profit center for the business, and that's interesting. I did not know, actually, Patrick, before I saw this, that there were large contractors. Although I guess nothing would surprise me, but yeah, like there are very, very large contractors that actually they probably have set up little companies inside, and
Yeah.
they're running a profit center on the equipment. Yeah,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. But I help implement software. I contract out to implementing rental software as another part of my world, and that's not more often than not, but it's statistically a significant representative scenario where the software is being installed into a contractor's company to track their internal this.
Yeah, their
Yeah,
internal use of it.
exactly.
Fantastic. Think
So
about it,
just,
folks.
yeah, so that also sounds like well and good, and it sounds like money's starting to grow on trees, but we do have to reflect on like overhead, like owned
Right.
machines drag labor that never hits an invoice to your clients. We've got the repair hours, towing, transport, um, seasonal maintenance, and so on. You know, in all the while, those points that I just listed are usually consuming man hours of your valuable resources. So looks the ownership on the ownership side, renting stuff can look good until you do a real good job of articulating what your owned rental costs are when you do it that way, versus what Patrick pointed out. If you're just straight up renting and you're finding margin opportunity through your operational efficiency, then there's a pretty good argument for renting and
Yeah.
running a rental company inside your company.
All the risk is over there. All the
Yeah,
risk is over there, and all the over here. So
yeah,
that's a good way to
yep. That's
it's a good way to
the
do business.
polarized. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
polarized way to put it, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
So we're starting to land on some ratios. What we have here is what I call the equipment recovery rate. To be honest, we don't really throw that around in the industry because we're not scrutinizing this angle that we're talking about as much. But basically, what I'm saying is one number catches all of it. Equipment dollars charged to jobs divided by equipment dollars spent. So rent plus whatever carrying costs should be a factor of 1 or better, 100% or better. So
Right.
obviously charging your jobs should outweigh your costs. If a machine can't pay its own rent on your jobs, don't own it. Let the rental store own it and try to leverage some of these advantages that we've been talking about
And
in
do
efficiency.
add up those costs. Do a meticulous analysis on those costs. Patrick, I don't know. Like I know I've seen numerous residential contracts where the equipment isn't in there as a line item. It's just something,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's this invisible background cost that that the contractor has assumed, to themselves. And to your point, no one is looking at it, no one is tallying it up. It's but I'm telling you, it has an impact. It could be a very
mhm,
big impact.
yeah. When I was in the operator game, this came across my counter one day for the first time that I had ever, I had never thought of it before. But contractor A owns all the stuff because they love the stuff, and contractor B rents all the stuff because they love what the stuff can do. And when they quote on the same job, they're completely different quotes. Like one contractor is completely conscious, contractor B is completely conscious of the expense of rental equipment and like to the dollar, whereas contractor A that owns everything, they've got an idea of what it costs them in an initial outlay, and they've got a team of resources that can keep it going and whatnot, but they don't really know what that burden is on them. And
Gas. They know what the
boiling,
gas. They know how much gas roughly they're going to
yeah,
have to put in it, and they know what they
exactly.
paid for it, and everything else is now just in a day's work.
Yeah. So the customer, how do I put this? The client to the contractors, they get two different quotes. One's got equipment on it for like the daily rental rate, and or maybe the weekly or maybe the monthly rental rate. You know, are you passing off your invoice? Because I'm, as a rental operator, going to probably be invoicing you long term on a monthly basis. You have to decide if it makes sense to quote your client on a daily by daily basis to find some additional margin efficiency there. Yeah, so concept that everyone has to come across. There's going to be arguments sake on both sides of the contractor A and contractor B. It's the dollar and the value to the end client, the contractor's client at the end, that's going to find the successful bid. And all of this is just harmonizing your resources and ability to, you know, deliver good work to your end customers. Just
Awesome.
slicing it in different ways.
A machine that can't pay its own rent on your jobs is a machine the rental store owns better than you can. I love it. Very well done.
Right.
Yeah.
You can imagine that we, as rental operators, me former, but as rental operators, are pretty good at renting this stuff. We've got, you know, Gary that knows everything about concrete demolition, coring, and so on. And we got Phil that's the electrical guy, like electric over hydraulic specialist. Like until you're at some sort of scale, you probably don't have those two resources that we have.
Yeah.
So move on to the next one here. Okay, so this is where I'm trying to drive home a simplified decision for you.
Yep.
You know, so
bring it down to one as best we can. Yep.
The takeaway is the rule of thumb, and it's 25%. Yes, it's a quarter. Take a quarter of the machine's price, which we have talked about, bounce it around. That's your yearly burden of ownership. Now a price a year of renting it at your real usage days. Whichever smaller is your answer.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Now, purchase price or total cost of ownership price, or you're thinking,
you're renting at real usage. Yeah, no, you're right. That's total ownership.
It should be. Yeah. So when we mean ownership price.
Yeah.
So
I can't fix that on the fly.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's why they made me an editor, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you.
I read things compulsively. Yeah, no, that's right. So do that stuff we talked about earlier. Do tally up all of your costs that are involved with maintaining that machine, and then 25% of that. Now you're that's your target.
Totally. And if you're anywhere close to the gray zone, we already know there's so many reasons to argue, like leave it to the rental professionals. You want daylight. You want a clear picture of opportunity before you're finding a path that's somewhere in the gray zone.
Right. Excellent point. Yeah.
So take it as a grain of salt. I'm a rental guy in a contractor's universe right now, but I would think that your follow-on advices here is find your job log from last year and break out the usage days of your owned equipment across CAT classes across the board. That gives you something to work from. Start thinking about your long rental to the rental house being on a monthly basis, but charging it out to your clients on a daily basis. That works I would imagine that would work really well when you've got a number of jobs that can share assets and you've got some project management prioritization strategy around being able to keep projects out of phase. I should stop talking. This is not my area.
It's not always possible, but sometimes yes. Yeah. It
definitely
depends how much you've got going on. Yeah.
So if you are, making bank on your owned assets, moving them around divergent phase projects and you have gaps, rent it very happily because you already know that this is already close to the line, especially on the bigger equipment. Yeah, and I think that's put equipment as a price line in every quote. We talked about that already.
We talked about it. Yeah.
I think so. So and you know, you're the experts. Like if that's something that you shouldn't do, then it's something you shouldn't do. Call it what you want. But I would think because there's this whole transaction and cost center in your business, turning it into a profit center makes a lot of sense to me.
I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I can't see any reason why you wouldn't do that. You quote everything else transparently, especially on a custom build. The quote is very detailed, and you know that should be in there. That equipment use could be in there if it's not.
Yeah.
So of course you have the homeowner going, "Well, I got a truck you can use." Yeah, but you don't
Yeah,
have to,
totally.
you don't have to deal with that. But
Yeah,
that's
it. So
no, that's great
yeah,
advice.
I don't think any of this, specifically needs software consultant. You can start down this path, this afternoon, tomorrow, like going through this data, whether it's on paper or you've got it somewhere resourced. I'm available on account that it's my expertise and vertical to like the rental component is definitely more of my area. So I'm always available for that if anyone's interested. Figures throughout this whole discussion are market typical ranges, not particularly anchored to Canada dollar, Canadian dollars, US dollars, regional resale. That was my reservation from the start on articulating all this. So hopefully you can take some of these numbers and ranges as a grain of salt, but take away the concepts and have some value with that. And yeah, that's pretty well it.
Really, really useful stuff, Patrick. I think this is great. I hope everyone watching agrees. I think it's just a great food for thought and a starting point to do your own calculations and your own analysis of how you're using your equipment and whether everything you're doing really makes sense. And remember, we've talked a lot about plate compactors and excavators because they're pretty much the most common things. Then there's heat. Then there's dehumidification. There's all the lift, obviously, equipment. There's so much that everyone listening knows that they need for a job site. There's all the concrete equipment. It's something I think that would benefit taking a closer look at if you haven't recently. Patrick Tunnicliffe, rental wise, I think you've really given us something of value here. Thank you so much for joining. Where can if people have questions, they can find you through getrentalwise.com. Is that the way?
That's the one. Getrentalwise.com. Like I sort of alluded to, if you're thinking about integrating rental into your operation, then there might be something I can help you with there. If you're just taking that step deeper into the deep end, then software, that's a big part of what I do is software selection, and then business management consulting within the vertical, growth diagnostics and business efficiency and exit strategy when you're trying to walk away from it all. That's my world. But yeah, have a look at getrentalwise.com and see what resources are there. There's some articles and whatnot for you.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you. Take care.